All right, everyone, and welcome back to our Midnight Magic Musings channel. I am one of the hosts on this channel, Lord Cephas. I am joined by the Earl of Florida. Earl, how are you?
I am doing much better than last week. I was under the weather and missing an ex.
For those of you that weren't aware, the Earl was in some dire straits in terms of physicality and sickness, but he seems to have rebounded, make a full recovery. So we are back this week for our Midnight Magic Musings episode 6. But this one's going to be a little bit special. We try to do something different every week. This one is actually going to be in two parts because of the difficulty in finding time to record with our day jobs and family life and such. Just not able to do that. So we're going to do it in two parts. So tonight will be part one. Tomorrow, hopefully, we will get in part two. And for this week's show, we promised in the prior week that we would discuss Comic Con. Now, we were hoping to discuss what we thought might take place at Comic Con. We didn't have the opportunity to do that, but we can certainly talk about what was announced at Comic Con. There's a bunch of stuff to discuss. There's Marvel, there's DC, there's D&D. Um,
Star
we,
Trek.
we have Star Trek, we have Lord of the Rings stuff. So there's a lot, and that doesn't even touch on the Walking Dead information that was dropped. There's a ton of stuff to get through. We're certainly not going to touch it all this evening. We probably won't get it all done in the next episode either, but we're going to do our best. So, Earl, what is the first one you have on your list to discuss tonight?
Well, I think the first one on the list to talk about would have to be Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever.
And from what I read, the reports I saw, the trailer broke the internet with the number of views that it had.
Yeah, it's on course to break the internet again, apparently. And I saw the trailer. Did you find the time to catch the trailer?
You know what? I was fortunate. I've seen it a couple of times. I shared it with Lady Cephas as well. A lot of interesting imagery. I thought the fact that really only one line is spoken in the entire movie, I think that is a fresh take on a trailer. Oftentimes we complain you gave away the movie in the 2 minute trailer or whatever. They didn't do that. They left me wanting more. Just a couple of things that I thought were interesting. I'll hand it off to you. The fact that they all wore white as a color of mourning. Thought now some of the characters did wear black as the trailer wore on, but I thought that was very interesting. Um, it's very emotional. Angela Bassett can do no wrong, not for me anyway. Um, so I really, I look forward to see where the story is going to go. Um, Shuri looked great. We saw what who would appear to be Riri Williams, the
Yep.
future Ironheart, the MIT student. But before I give all of my thoughts away, what are some of your takeaways from it?
Well, like you mentioned, that it didn't have a lot of dialogue in the trailer, but I wouldn't consider this strictly a teaser trailer because it was like 2 minutes and 10 seconds long or something around there.
Hmm.
So it was quite lengthy for what you would typically consider a teaser trailer. But but I think they managed to keep it as a teaser trailer because obviously you're showing certain elements of that's going to be in the movie, and but between the brief dialogue and then the soundtrack, the theme that went with it, and you can watch the actors as it go into different scenes, and you can see the some of the inner turmoil, the pain, the loss that they are affected.
Hmm.
And I think that concerning it's what almost three times the length of a teaser trailer, and it's not technically a the first official trailer, it manages to convey a certain gravity to the situation while showing that they're going to continue along their own identity, like you had mentioned about the white clothing. So just that right there, I thought they managed to pull off a very good first trailer, teaser trailer sort of hybrid.
Hmm.
They were able to show certain elements, but not give away the entire plot line, or even possibly the actual villain of the
Yeah, and we can really get into that here in just a minute. So a couple of other things that jumped out at me. Um, the pageantry was there, but I think the subdued presentation of the pageantry is really going to set this movie apart. I think, Wakanda is the type of place watching it on screen you would want to go to. You would want to be there and meet the people and visit in real life. And I think the shots and the colors and the choices that this trailer showed off, I think are going to be very impactful from an emotional level. And, actors are paid to act, to make us feel that they are this character, make us think, oh, yes, that could really be that person in real life. And I think you saw that a lot in some of the cut of the trailer, the actors, and I think in some cases, very raw emotion because of their closeness with Chadwick Boseman and the
Yep.
loss that they felt, and then having to step back on set. To be honest, playing in a movie that is based on a character he pioneered, going back to Captain America: Civil War, and so I think we are in for some very emotional performances. If you look at the actresses and actors that are in the movie, Angela Bassett, as I said, can do no wrong.
And
Denai
Sam.
Guerrilla,
Awesome.
yeah, as a Koye, I think that's going to be very powerful for her because the head of the Dora Milaje, her responsibility is to protect the king, and she
Yep.
couldn't. Now, I'll just give you an opinion. I think it's going to be that T'Challa contracted some type of disease and passed away. I don't think he'll be killed in battle because I think that kind of wound would be too difficult for the fan base to deal with, especially if it's a off-screen type battle.
Hmm.
Or if you overly CGI something like that, let's say go the Carrie Fisher route, I could see you turning off a good segment of your not your population, but of your fan base. So
Yeah.
I think, and it's just my opinion, I think that's how they will handle that. Um, but I do look forward to seeing, okay, how do you transition from that? Because that's going to be the specter, the shroud, if you will, hanging over the entire movie.
Yep.
So, what are your thoughts as far as? And I know they showed someone in a black outfit
Yep.
with gold markings on their costume. I'm going to leave that one to you because I think we all know where you're going. But what are
I
some of your
mean,
takeaways from what will they do with the mantle of Black Panther? What do you think?
well, what you're alluding to is it's my personal fan fiction is when Chadwick Boseman passed. I thought they had a perfect opportunity to keep some of the the interweaving
Hmm.
story from Black Panther 1, because you know that the suit itself is supposed to compress the wounds. And I think we mentioned this in one of the other episodes when when the Killmonger was stabbed, removed the spear. However, the suit is designed to compress the wound and keep him alive. And we also know that they have stasis chambers because they have it for the Winter Soldier when he had to go up there, minus an arm. So I always thought it would be interesting to bring back Michael B. Jordan because you have a character already introduced, a character that does have a connection and an emotional connection with the character T'Challa and Chadwick Boseman, and it would be almost like a redemption arc for him, perhaps, or a way for him to. You can't replace T'Challa, you can't replace Chadwick Boseman, and that's the path that Disney's went. And I think I can see the merits of doing it that way. And I neither agree or disagree because I think whatever they do, they're going to catch flack from one party or another. But
Right.
they're trying to go forward as respectfully as possible, and I think that's very important here. But I think they could bring Michael B. Jordan back because he is technically the only other person now that has the Black Panther serum flower lotus thing floating around the system.
Hmm.
And Michael B. Jordan's just a tremendous actor. I love him to death. And I think he could be a part of the story without taking away from what you had mentioned, the specter of T'Challa and Chadwick Boseman that kind of hangs over it. And that's one thing. When I saw at the very end the Black Panther suit with the gold trim, I'm like, that's Killmonger's outfit. But
Hmm.
I could totally be wrong. I probably am. But if not, I will be referring back to these episodes saying, "See, I called it." But I think
And
that's
and
one
we'll
way.
let you have it. Don't worry. We'll bow the knee to the
But
Earl.
as you were mentioning some of the other actors and characters coming back, you failed to mention M'Baku, played by Winston Duke.
Oh, I didn't fail. I just hadn't gotten to that, but okay.
Okay, well, he's a Love him in it. I cheered a little bit when I saw him. I was like, yes, bring me Baku. But it's an interesting dynamic. Now we know that they need a Black Panther, and we know they have several choices.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned, they're also wanting to introduce Ironheart,
Hmm.
Riri Williams. I think what is it? IT Tech,
MIT.
MIT, IT Tech. Yeah, I got 2 out of 3. I'm feeling there. And I from what I had read, that some of the stories going to be taking place there
Hmm.
with Shiri
Yeah.
there as well. So I think it's going to be an emotional movie, because all these emotions from the fans are right there, and I think the actors and actresses and writers feel the same emotion, because Chadwick Boseman was very, very good, and it came as a surprise for everybody because he had been
Hmm.
battling for a while. And I think this movie is going to try to stay true to the idea that of the original Black Panther, while also honoring Chadwick Boseman and T'Challa. It's not an easy thing to do, but I'm you know what, I have faith in them. And what we were talking about right now is all these characters, but we haven't went into who's Ironheart.
Well, before we get into that, one thing you sparked in me when you were talking about the respect factor. This is
Mhm.
really the first time um, Marvel's had to deal with this, where an active character, a central character to the cinematic universe, has passed on. And we know we lost Thunderbolt Ross. We lost him a couple of months ago. But I guess his last appearance would have been in the Black Widow movie that came out last year. And of course, they CGI'd him younger
Of course.
because of the time frame, understandably so. Um, there is a scene in Endgame when the portals begin to open, and Sam is talking to Cap. It says on your left, right? That callback to Captain America: Civil War,
Actually, it
or
goes
no,
back to
Winter Soldier. Sorry.
yep,
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 you're right. And there's that. So that's kind of an emotional thing, right? But one of the
yep.
very first to step through a portal was T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman. And I don't. Maybe I'm overstepping here, and if I'm wrong, I'll own it. He walks out arm in arm with Shuri and with Okoye on his arms. Looking back, I don't think that was by accident. I really do not. I think I'm expressing an opinion. Please couch it as such. I think because of probably the immense amount of pain and the sickness he'd been going through, I think that was far more telling in that moment than any of us ever knew. But I also feel like in that moment it was very regal, and you know these three characters had become very popular in the MCU. I look back on it and I see that scene a little differently, maybe than I
Yeah,
did the first time I saw the movie. Um, I don't know who's going to take over the role of Black Panther. My assumption is it will be Shuri. Now
yep,
she's what, 16ish in the movies, roughly, give or take 16, 17.
yeah. Depends on was she one of the ones that turned to dust? I believe so, but I don't recall 100%.
I don't recall, and she didn't really get addressed in because Okoye is the one who was
Yeah,
the contact in Wakanda. Honestly, I think the simplest answer is make her Black Panther, and I'm not even saying that's the best answer. I'm saying I think that's the simplest answer. Um, but you brought up a couple of things. Where is going to be the access to the flower that gives you the power of your ancestry
yep,
with the Black Panther? I would go out on a limb, and if that's what they're going to do, and again, I'm not saying they should. I feel like that's probably just the easy way out. She's probably going to have to synthesize something. There's a scene in the trailer where she's down where there's fire and all of that. I think that's going to have something to do with, again, just my opinion. I haven't seen the movie. I don't know. Um, will she remain Black Panther when the movie's all said and done? I don't. I tend to think she will. They could swerve me, but I think that's probably how it will go. And I could see it where Black Panther is the protector of Wakanda, and yet someone else rules the throne, which is very similar to the Avengers video game that came out a couple of years ago, that's how they played the Wakanda section of the video game. The Black Panther joins the Avengers, leaves Shuri on the throne. I can't remember the name that they used, but she was, it wasn't Princess, but it was something else of
Well, what
Wakanda.
didn't they also do something similar to that during Civil War when you had the king what was it, T'Chaka was
T'Chaka,
the father's
yes.
name?
Yep, that's
He was
correct.
a king, but they knew that the Black Panther was the protector, and it wasn't until they were sitting in they were arrested at that after the scene through the tunnel
Hmm.
between Winter Soldier, Captain America, and Falcon and Black Panther. It was when he took the mask off. It was like, oh crap, that's
Hmm.
the king. So I mean, it did kind of allude to that a little bit without specifically stating that it wasn't necessarily known. Kind of like how Iron Man was supposed to be the first Iron Man.
Right,
Iron Man is his bodyguard. I'm Iron Man.
right, exactly.
Yeah, he kind of pulled that out. It's like, nope. So, yeah, it'll be interesting because from what the trailer alludes to is that Angela Bassett is the reigning queen at the moment.
Right.
So, so if Siri was snapped, that would make some sense. She wasn't there, so she had to, sit on the throne. But if Siri was not snapped, she's 5 years older, so she would be in her early 20s now. Why is she
Mhm.
not the next reigning leader of Wakanda?
It's a fair
Question.
question. Yeah, it's a fair question. We've got a lot of questions that are going to need to be answered when that movie comes out in a few months. But you were alluding to the other big thing. It's been
Yep.
rumored, it's been talked about, it's been hoped for. They spoiled a little bit with the Lego sets that they were showing. Which if you want to avoid spoilers, don't look at the Lego sets when a movie's coming out because they will give you.
Never look at the Lego sets.
That is correct. But there he is in all of his glory. We have Namor, the Submariner. Technically, the first mutant in the comic books, although there are mutants that predate him, but he was the first mutant drawn in the comic
Yep.
book. So we're going to let him have his moment in the sun, in the water,
In the water.
but in the sun. So we finally get to see a Marvel take on Aquaman. And to be fair, and my understanding is Namor predates Aquaman. So you have some derivatives between Marvel and DC: Aquaman, Namor, Hawkeye, Green Arrow. Um, so there are a couple of those
Yeah.
that are across the board there. But we finally get to see him, and something interesting they talked about, and this is actually after Comic Con, is he will not be the ruler of Atlantis. They are distancing themselves from the name Atlantis. My guess is it's because DC got their Aquaman movie out first. It
You don't
was a
want to
huge
copy your
hit.
cop. Yeah.
Even though technically in publishing lore they had the first.
By
Um,
I think it was like 15 years or so. It was a
and
good bit because Namor was in the 30s.
correct. Well, he's one of the first defenders. We would find out years later in the comics. He and Cap and a couple of others. So there's some thought to understanding why they did that. I know it's going to irritate some purists that I believe the land's name is going to be Tolkana rather
Yeah.
than Atlantis. But Earl, I'm going to ask you. You're a comic book reader, but you're also a fan of the MCU and all the associated lore that goes with it. How do you see that playing when that movie finally comes out? Is it going to be a problem for them, or do you think it'll be okay?
I think again, alluding to DC, you look at Aquaman. Before Jason Momoa was Aquaman, 95% of anything with Aquaman was a joke. He
Hmm.
had blonde hair, blue eyes, and he talked to fish. I mean, it was literally played off as a joke for decades and decades.
Right,
Now, in the 90s, you got some of the edgier Aquaman with Orin when he got his hand chopped off and he grew the beard.
right,
And
right.
so you had so you had some of that.
Hmm.
But when Jason Momoa jumped in, it completely reinvigorated, retold who Aquaman was. Aquaman was he was awesome at that point, right?
He's a bad man, shall we
Yeah,
say?
family show, so he's a bad butt.
He's a
Okay,
bad man. Yes.
but so I think with Marvel, I like the aesthetic change. It almost feels like an Aztec Mayan kind of culture
Mm,
underwater. So that's a
totally agree.
bit different than Aquaman's Atlantis. But Namor in the comics wasn't really ever, joked at or pointed fingers at. It's like, aha, he talks to fists or anything like that. So he already has a little bit more street cred, so to speak, or ocean cred, wherever you're at.
I see what you did
What,
there.
nah. So I mean, he has a little bit more cred with the fans that follow the comics and follow the origin stories. So I think he appeared similar in the trailer. He appeared, obviously black hair
Hmm.
and aquiline uh, features, perhaps would be
Sure.
the best way to put it. And so I don't, I, me personally, I'm not going to have much of a problem because it takes it takes a bit of a translation from comic books or books to a movie, to a film. So there are certain liberties that are taken, obviously, and
Hmm.
sometimes we're like, no. But on top of that, there are also liberties that need to happen in order to make this particular character viable. From bringing a comic every month with
Hmm.
hundreds and hundreds of comics to fitting him into a story that's only going to go between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours long, that already have other characters and everything in there. So they have to be poignant and choose their points carefully, or else they're just going to have a cardboard version of Namor, or somebody that crams so much into it that you're upset, kind of like how Batman versus Superman was supposed to be the Man of Steel sequel, but it became the Batman Bruce Wayne Gal Gadot show pretty much. And I ain't complaining. I thoroughly enjoyed their parts in the movie. So they have to be careful not to focus too much on Namor, in my opinion. And I don't have a complaint with them so far. What about you?
So, a couple of things you brought up I think are really, really good. First of all, they're sort of tapping into the Mayan culture. They've not done that in the MCU. So, I think that's interesting. You can still get the same results, I think, but I understand there will be purists who are upset about it. But I want to
Of
address
course.
that because I've thought about that, and you brought that up too. It's a whole lot easier, like you said, when there's a bunch of comics being printed every week or every 2 weeks or every month, depending on what schedule they're on. And you think about the catalog of Marvel properties. You can tell a story over a long period of time, but if you only get 90 minutes to 2 hours to tell a story, and it's an introduction story, and you want that to hit, correct me if I'm wrong. You've seen the Harry Potter movies, right?
Yep. Well, the 8 films correlating to the Harry Potter series.
Right, and as I told you off air, I'm going through them with my wife, watching them. Correct me on my term. Is it Muggles? Is that what they call
Yep.
those with no magical power?
Non-magical. Yep.
Okay, so I kind of feel that way. The way the fan base looks at things sometimes is if you don't read the comics and don't know the lore, you're one of those. You're just not as well
You're not
versed. You're not one of us, so
you're
to
not the
speak.
real fans. You're just a movie enjoyer.
Exactly, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
pushback, or you hear the term normies thrown around. And I don't like to use these phrases because you know what? For all the people who complain, you don't like to have a be put in a box. You're doing that to other people. But be that as it may, and it's just my opinion. I can't give you numbers to back it up. This is all anecdotal. Yes, the informed fans, shall we say, the readers of lore and all of those things, do make up a chunk of the fan base. They make up a very vocal chunk of the fan base online. I don't know that they make up the majority chunk of the monies that are spent on the movies. Marvel's known for making its money the first 2 to 3 weekends of the movie being released, and then it just slowly drops off. So
Like a
you got to
Rolling
get
Stone.
right. You got to get as much of it done as quickly as you can and get as much as you can on those first 2 to 3 weekends.
Yep.
I don't know that this is going to keep people away. I know there are some that are latching onto it and saying, "Well, see, I won't watch it because Marvel's insulting its fan base and whatnot." It's not insulting its fan base. They own the IP. They can do what they want. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. But if the movie's a massive hit and hits $1 billion, then what do you say to that? Well, people just didn't understand. Or are we one day going to graduate to the point in terms of humanity's ability to say, you know what, that wasn't for me. I didn't watch it, but you go ahead and like it if you want to. I'm not going to watch it. I would like to think one day we'll get there, but getting myself back on track for a moment. I'm very excited to see Namor, see what they do with him. I'm going to make a prediction here for
Okay.
the plot line. I don't know it, but it does seem like this is sort of a fish out of water kingdom fight, kingdom against kingdom. And I have this feeling that someone's pulling the strings behind the scenes. For example, they start out, part of the trailer is in the ocean when they're looking for more vibranium. I think that's when Tulkana will be discovered. And I think that it'll probably be tied to Riri Williams's research somehow. And then, boom, there you go. Now they're going to go at it because, and we saw, you said it, shots of Riri with the Dora Milaje and Shuri. Are they
Yep.
protecting her? Because Namor and his people come to get them because they've exposed whatever the reason is. I think that's probably where it's going to go, which really means Namor and his people are not, while they are the aggressors, they're not really bad people. Just
I
kind of one of those things like Civil War where you pick a side.
Yep.
This is just an opinion. I'm going on a limb. I think ultimately this is setting up a little bit of Doctor Doom on down the road. And maybe it's a cut scene, maybe it's a mid-credit scene where they reveal there was someone else behind the expedition that really was the one who was the instigator here. It's just an opinion. I could be way wrong, but that's what I'm gonna go with as I sit here tonight.
Well, I have to say that I also agree with where you're coming from because it has a Civil War feel or a Batman versus Superman feel where you got
Hmm.
two different peoples who think they're right now have misinformation about the other one because obviously Namor they're going to want to keep him and have him assuming everything works out and he's beloved and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
uh he's going to have a movie or part of a series or something will be coming up with Namor. In
Right.
order to do that he can't, I'm not, I shouldn't say can't, but he more than likely will be a hero and
Eventually.
eventually. So
Mhm.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be a, stick two people on each other and then take advantage of the chaos or the opportunities that them fighting gives you, which means there is a puppet master. And I like what you mentioned, Doom, Doctor Doom, and I thoroughly I knock for Doctor Doom,
Hmm.
but we know in the comics that he actually had a suit of vibranium, so maybe he is trying to get the vibranium, or maybe he's just waiting to steal some of Wakanda's tech, and obviously some of Namor's uh, people's tech. It's an interesting and why did you go with Doctor Doom? What led you to say Doctor Doom?
The vibranium. I'm trying to think of what despot would be who would benefit the most from those two kingdoms going at it and one possibly taking over the other or them wiping each other out. Something like that. I don't see Kang, who we'll probably talk about in part two.
Mhm.
I don't see Modoc, although we will talk about Modoc again in part two. Um, so I'm just trying to go down the natural order that I can think in my head. We know Thanos. It's not. We know it's not Galactus. So,
Yeah.
well, I would imagine not. So, I
Well, not
mean,
yet.
yeah, not yet. But I'm thinking, okay, let's start deduction. Who could it be? I think he makes a really good villain in the future. You don't even have to show him. You could
Yeah.
just show an outline of him, and everybody would know, and it would work. And the
Like
other thing, good.
Avengers.
Well,
Avengers 2012, at the very end, you got that brief glimpse of, oh, there was a guy behind the guy behind the guy.
right, with turning the head up with a smile on his face, which is so villainously perfect.
Was
But
it wasn't that Sidney Poitier's son? I don't know why. I think I read somewhere that the man who played Thanos in Avengers, that just brief glimpse of smile.
mhm,
I'm gonna have to look it up just to make sure, but I'm almost positive it was Sidney Poitier's son.
I
I'm
love
almost
Sidney
positive.
Poitier. If you've ever seen In the Heat of the Night, not the TV series, although I did like that as well because I'm old. Um, but the movie is really, in many ways, a very transformative movie of showing a very strong black man in the 60s in the South as a detective from Philadelphia. So if you've never watched it, there are going to be some themes and some elements that are going to be difficult to watch because it was set in those times. But yeah, so if you don't know who Earl is talking about, you should go look it up because he was one of the best actors of our generation or of a generation prior.
We're not
So
quite there yet, so
yeah, right. Let me ask you this. So this is ending phase four. And you could argue phase four financially did not reach the levels that phases one, two, and three hit. And we can absolutely look at the lockdowns and what went on there. And you could even argue maybe some of the movie choices they made maybe just didn't resonate as well. Black Widow, for the reasons we've always talked about, should have had her movie many years before.
yep.
I'm a fan of Shang-Chi. I know I'm in the minority with some of my friends, but I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. Eternals, well, I've aired my grievances on that. It just if I've got to read that many words on screen to understand it, well, I'm going to play on my phone or something. I can read on my phone. But the Phase Four overall, I mean, if you take out Sony Spider-Man No Way Home, because technically
Yeah,
it's not a Marvel movie, it's a Sony movie. Um,
I'll
we
give
ab-
it to you.
Thank you. We know that Doctor Strange did very, very well. Thor: Love and Thunder, it really remains to see where that number tops out at. It started to slow down, as most all Marvel movies do, because you get that walk up business the first couple of weekends. So we'll
Yep.
see. But you can argue, and with reasons and excuses that are legitimate, it's really underperformed financially. Do you think there's a lot of pressure on Disney Marvel for Phase Five and what they're getting to beginning to roll out after Black Panther, kind of starting to kind of preview what we might talk about tomorrow? Do you think, from a stockholder perspective, of which I am not, I fully admit, so I can talk about this stuff. I don't have any skin in the game. Do you think there's any added pressure on them with the Phase Five rolling out?
I think Phase Four. Looking at the movies that are coming out, like you said, Doctor Strange, Thor, even if you want to throw Spider Man or not in there,
Mm-hmm.
as they're rolling out Phase Four, it's very much Phase Four is very much almost like Phase One, because if you looked at Phase One, Iron Man came out first. It was just first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Iron Man 2 hit with uh, Thor, Captain America. That was the actual first start of Phase One.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about this before. If you go back and look at the box office numbers, uh, they weren't massive or crazy
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that. They made a profit, and they obviously hit uh, the pocketbooks pretty well for Disney to or Marvel at the time, but get thumbs up,
Right.
right? So, and we've talked about this already. We're at the point where we're either establishing new characters or reestablishing old characters with a new face underneath the mantle of it, so to speak.
Sure.
So I think that we have the Disney and we as the fans and viewers have to take into account that we're not quite back at phase one because all these characters are somewhat established,
Mm-hmm.
but but revenue, the fan base, it's almost back to phase one because people are like, well, I loved Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Do I really want to watch somebody else play Thor? And they have to, earn my trust. They have to earn my money. Same with the Iron Man thing. It's like, who's going to take over for him? Is it going to be Ironheart? Is it going to be Don Cheadle's War Machine? Is it going to be somebody different? And I love Tony Stark as Iron Man, so they have to earn my love and trust. Same thing with Captain America. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, outstanding, outstanding. He became Chris Evans became Captain America. Steve
Right.
Rogers, and I I I liked the path that Disney went with the Captain America and the Falcon, or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because it gave them an opportunity to establish the character as he is before they roll into the next movie. So I would almost say he might actually have a better fan base now because his phase one was kind of the series on Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Phase five, they're hoping that all the people they've introduced are building on that fan base now because you have Doctor Strange fans showed up, and we're going to have the same thing for for Thor. We're gonna have the same thing for Black Panther, but
Mhm.
they're also somewhat established. Uh, I think they have to weigh how much they're putting into it versus what they expect to get and temper their expectations to the formula that they've been
Mhm.
following since phase one. Because pretty much this is the second version of the new phase. And we call it phase
Right.
four, but we're reestablishing things. That's why you don't have an Avenger movie dropping this year,
Mhm.
because you haven't established who's actually going to even be in the Avengers.
Oh, I want to
So,
talk about that in part two. I want to get your ideas on who made you end up in the Avengers because, as they announced, they're not doing one Avengers movie; they're doing two Avengers movies in the same year.
mhm,
That's a gutsy play. The whole thing with Endgame and Infinity War, where they were a year apart,
yeah.
and people had to wait a year. I don't know if it's in reaction to that we need to keep it going.
Or
Um,
maybe it's a December or January of the one year, and then that same December, which would be
you could do
11
that.
months.
Kind of like the HBO model where we do almost the whole year, but not exactly. So we got the two seasons in one year. It's
Pretty
it's
much,
going
yeah.
to be interesting to see. I think you hit it on the head, and that is financially the amount of money you put in versus the amount of return you can expect. And really, the only thing they can work off of is their most recent returns. So you
Hmm.
have established characters. Doctor Strange does well. Thor, regardless of what people think, has not always done high numbers. I think Love and Thunder will be very happy if it gets right around Ragnarok numbers. I think.
I agree.
I don't know that it can surpass it, but if it gets really close, I'd be like, I think we wrung everything out of it that we could. Now, if it falls significantly short of it, we can have
Then,
that. We can have those discussions. But I think that does bear watching, is especially as more content begins to drop on Disney Plus because they're
hmm
trying to compete with Netflix. Because
well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was going to interject there. That's also going to weigh in with the Avengers team.
Hmm.
Is what's going to happen with one of the announced things that's going to be hitting as the Thunderbolts. You know,
Yes.
and we already know that certain introduced and established characters, even if they're newer, are going to be going over there.
Hmm.
So now we're like, who's going to be on the Thunderbolts and who's going to be an Avenger?
Right, and I think we can probably look at some of the characters that'll be on Thunderbolt. I think we've been introduced to them already.
Hmm.
I think that Natasha Romanoff's sister is a layup on that one. I would imagine you could do something maybe with Abomination if
Yeah.
you wanted to, because it seems like he is kind of going to be the tie between a whole bunch of different things.
And
Um,
isn't he?
Good.
He would. Isn't Abomination in the the new trailer for She-Hulk?
Oh, he have yeah, Tim Roth
Yeah.
as his normal human form. Oh yes, I think he's going to end up being a linkage in a lot of those things. I would imagine U.S. Agent, who we've not forgotten about from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think
What?
he's I think he's a good fit right there. I think you're going to see oh, what's her name? The lady that has apparently allergy issues every time she's in a movie. Oh gosh, I can't think of her name. Seinfeld, Elaine.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
I was never going to get there, and I'm not sure why. Other than it is almost midnight, so thereby we're the flagship show is being true to itself by almost
We're,
being midnight.
we're on
Um,
target.
yeah, I'm sure she's no pull up. Um, I'm pretty sure she's going to probably be the leader of the Thunderbolts. I think that, or they're going to eventually turn her into the version of Nick Fury. I'm not super excited about that. I'll just tell you now. I don't think she's the person I want giving me orders in the middle of a crisis, but I'll give it time and we'll see. So
I'd take her over Amanda Waller.
wait, now which version of Amanda Waller?
Uh, Viola Davis.
Okay, I want the one from Arrow.
Yeah. Okay.
She
Or
legitimately looked like she could fight and hurt me in probably all the fun ways. So
the old Justice League Amanda Waller.
you know what? Whatever anyone says about that, I really like the arc of that character. I
Yeah.
really, really did. One day we'll have to do our ode to the Justice League because there's so much good material there.
Yep.
Well, Earl, we've gone a little over half hour. Not that that's the goal, but we just wanted to get some content out tonight because we promised we would. We still have a whole lot to cover. We still didn't probably scratch the surface with Black Panther 2 or Wakanda Forever. There's still a whole bunch more that we have on the list. We have Ant Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania. We've got the two Avengers movies.
Yep.
And we didn't even mention, the Kang Dynasty is the first one we mentioned. We have Secret Wars after that, which will be completely bonkers because if you read the comic series, the whole point of it was you have no idea who's who. Are they a Skrull? Are they a Kree? Are they really the individual that you know to have been? So there's still a lot of stuff. We haven't even gotten to some of the Disney Plus series. She Hulk drops next month.
Yep.
Echo, who which had Daredevil in it, they announced more Daredevil. A bit of a continuation, a bit of a soft reboot. A lot of interesting things we can break out, but let's just be honest. I'm so happy Charlie Cox is going to be officially canonized in the MCU. There's going to be a lot of interesting stuff going on, and then a lot of that I think is going to lead into okay, so who is going to be your roster of Avengers? I was thinking earlier this evening, driving around, I really think I could probably identify anywhere from 10 to about 15 different
Yep.
personalities that could be active Avengers, and probably three or four characters that could be the leader of the Avengers when that movie drops. And so maybe we'll get into that tomorrow night if we have more time. That one actually may go way longer than this one.
Yeah,
Um,
because yeah,
go ahead.
then we have to start talking about well, what's coming out now? Are they going to be Avenger? Are they going to be Hero? Are they going to be Cosmic? Like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is I'm expecting it to be a full on cosmic
Mm-hmm.
movie, not really have anything to do with Earth. Who survives, who retires, who dies, and if there are any survivors or retirees, would they answer a call from the Avengers or not?
If they could be gotten a hold of, you never know. Because if you think about it, they were all at Tony Stark's funeral. They all were
Yeah.
paying their respects, and that's even down to the young man from Iron Man 3. I can't think of his character's name right now, which was the most random placement, but it made the most sense in what they
Mm-hmm.
did. So you could argue that though every all of those people were Avengers at least for the one fight with Thanos. So could they be reserves that could be recalled if necessary? I don't know. I just hope we see more Wong because the more I see of Wong, the more he grows on me. I wasn't super excited about the whole Sorcerer Supreme thing when I first heard it. I'm like, wait, what? But as it's kind of gone on, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of cheeky fun. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying this.
See,
Um,
they battle.
yeah. So I look forward to talking about that. Like we said, we haven't even got to DC or anything else. We might have to do this in five parts
Yeah.
to get all this stuff, a 4 hour marathon episode. Earl, was there anything else you wanted to go over tonight, either from Black Panther or well, I guess Black Panther 2 is about as far as we got. So that yet
Yeah.
again we've raised the bar.
Um. No, I think that's about it. We can sit here and talk all night about what could be in Black Panther and dissect the trailer, but
Mm.
as we mentioned earlier, you only had a very small amount of dialogue, and then the rest of it was finding a way to resonate with the audience. And I think the trailer did a great job at resonating with the audience and making us feel what they're feeling.
Well, we are what I think if I did the math right, just around 3.5 months away from because
Yep.
it comes out in the middle of November, I believe, or early part of November. I think it's November 11th, maybe. That actually might be Veterans Day weekend, actually, when that drops. So, um, if it's a holiday, you might see an even higher number for that weekend. That'll be very interesting to see. Movies that drop around holidays are always interesting. They typically tend to do very well. That could be a big boom for that movie as well. Remember, the last one was released in what, February, I think,
I
when
think so.
when there's usually not a lot going on, so it basically dominated because nothing was going to touch it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Don't think that they don't selectively pick these dates on purpose. And The last thing I'll say on this, and then we'll get ready to wrap up, is that Marvel or Disney didn't even drop everything. They still have
Yep.
D23 to come in September, where they're probably going to, they have dates that are locked in, but they have no titles. They have no direction of what they're going to be. You will hear more about that come
Well,
during that time as well.
that's yeah, that's one of my worries. Is I know Disney's got Black Panther 2, but then they have what they're hoping is going to be a massive hit, so the franchise can continue and a return to Avatar. Well,
To be fair, if you catch the Tolkanans in the right light, they do sort of resemble
little bit of blue.
the creatures from Avatar. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's all under the House of Mouse. Everything's fine with that. So
Yep.
we're all family here. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting over the next several months. There's going to be a lot of content coming in the movie theater, on Disney Plus, on Paramount Plus, on Hulu, uh, on Prime. It's, you know what, if you are a fan of science fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, anime, whatever your genre is, it's still a good time. There was a discussion this week, and I just want to say this: is there superhero fatigue? And we've heard that for, well, see, they started what, in '08, right? So we're coming up on, well, I can't do the math late at night. 16 years, 15 years.
Yeah,
We're coming up on 15 years.
and that's if you don't count the 2000, Spider-Man was by Sam Raimi or the X-Men movies.
Well, to be fair, can we say the Captain America movie started all in the early '90s?
You can say that,
I
but
mean, I
I'll
can,
I'll
but
say the Punisher. I'll say the Punisher is Dolph Lundgren.
we still
That
need
that's
to we need to cover that because I'm still out. I've done some research on why couldn't you at least wear the shirt with a skull on it. But anyway, um, at what point does superhero fatigue set in? And this is my opinion, and I'll throw it to you, and we'll close on this. I think superhero fatigue sets in when the stories start to suck. I think at that point you will see superhero genre fatigue begin to take place. If the stories are not good, people will start tuning out. You'll see less of them going. I don't know how you feel about that.
well. I'll just say something short. We experienced a fatigue like that once. It was we used to watch Monday night and flick
Mm.
back and forth between WWF at the time, it's not WWE, and WCW. And when they had the most numbers, when they were hits was when they were competing each other and they were pushing stories and people were invested in the stories and loved the wrestlers and loved the personality they brought. But when WCW started slacking off, we stopped flicking back and forth between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And then they eventually uh, became part of WWF, which became WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, not too far into the future of the merge, the stories started to fall flat. They stopped putting as much effort into it because they won. They won the
Mm-hmm.
Monday Night Wars,
That's
and
true.
so as the stories faltered and the interest, slowed down, people stopped tuning in. So I,
Well,
I agree with you. You have to have compelling stories by actors who are able to portray
mm-hmm.
uh, emotion and loss and all these things that would make the audience go, "Man, I love that movie. I'm going to buy a ticket to go see it next week," or sign up for Disney Plus because I want to see this series that has this
Right.
character in it. So, when they're starting getting lazy, in my opinion, the storytelling, that's that could very easily be the death knell for the superhero craze into fatigue.
Yeah, I don't think it's the glut of material. I think it's a glut of bad storytelling.
Yep.
CGI can't save us anymore because now we know what bad CGI looks like. Ask Sonic the Hedgehog's writers and producers and effects people about what good and bad looks like. So
Yep.
yeah, that we can't cover it up with that anymore. But if I don't cut it off now, we'll go on, and I'm not supposed to do that. So we're going to bring this to a close. I want to thank you all for listening, for watching. Do us a favor, click the like button, click subscribe. That really does help us in the YouTube algorithm. Gets our show out to many more people. We're very appreciative of our fans and those who share this content out. and interact with us. We do greatly appreciate it. It's a labor of love. We do this because, well, we're going to talk late at night anyway about this stuff. So why don't we share it with you and you all hear how silly we can be? All right, we're going to be back with part two this weekend. And we might even throw in a wrestling show for SummerSlam on Sunday. We've talked about it. We'll see
Yep.
if we're able to pull that off. But on behalf of the Earl of Florida, I am Lord Cephas. Thank you so much for listening to Midnight Magic Musings, Episode 6, Part 1. We'll be back with Part 2 very, very shortly. Take care, everyone.
It isn't.